Would you pray with me and for me, please? Gracious God, may the meditations of our hearts and the words of my mouth be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, you who are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I don't know that I'm quite ready to talk about it yet. I know that you're curious. I know you want to know what I saw, what I did, what went on, what happened. We did have a little bit of time with keepers and out and about on Tuesday. The team shared information about our trip. It was absolutely amazing. I'm still absorbing it, but I want to talk with you about my key takeaway. Because obviously you don't go on a trip like this and not get impacted by so many things, so many stories. The reality of our world, the world in which we live, the world in which some of you sitting in this room have fought for, literally fought for, in previous wars. And at least one member of our congregation continues to serve actively as part of our military, who, by the way, was on this trip. But this is my question. Who taught you how to hate? Somebody had to teach you how to hate. Every day, there are people that teach us how to hate. And there's a lot of reasons for that. At the heart of our desire to hate is this. You don't do what I want you to do the way I want you to do it when I want you to do it. And if you don't do my thing my way when you do it, then there's something wrong with you, and I'm obligated to hate you. At least somebody tells me that. Because it is not a normal thing, it's not a natural thing. I know that you couldn't hear it, but I could hear it loud and clear when I was standing up here. Our children that were sitting up here on the front, they were getting down on My Redeemer Lived. Y'all heard them, didn't you? I mean, that made me smile, because when they got to that part, they put everything into it and punched it. Abby, we must be doing something right back there, because they love that stuff. They believe in it. So they sing it loud. We're trying to teach them how to love. That's the basis of what we do, because as best as we can tell, that's the thing that Jesus would have us do, is to love. As a matter of fact, the Gospel of John and the epistles of John talk about that incessantly, especially the epistles of John, who tell us this. Whoever hates, calls himself a Christian and hates, you're a liar. John calls you that. John says, you're a liar if you hate people. And you're destined for hell. It's pretty strong. Yet, in a scan of this morning's headlines, I read many horrible things said by many people who are going to hate no matter what, because they've been told to hate. I will tell you two brief stories about my experience over the last 2 weeks. Our experience began in Krakow, Poland, not far from Auschwitz, and we went to Auschwitz. And ladies and gentlemen, I have walked through the gas chamber where 7,000 Jews a day were exterminated like cockroaches. And the ovens are right beside the gas chamber to make it convenient. It was a very efficient process. And so the bodies were taken directly to the ovens. I walked through both of those rooms. That's how my trip began. Somehow or another, a single man, a single human being, convinced a nation of people, including Christians in that nation, by the way, because it was a Christian nation at the time, taught those people how to hate. And in this particular case, to hate the Jews. My trip ended on the Danube River in Budapest, Hungary. And there's a wall at the edge of the river. And it's a straight drop. Most of the river has angled banks, but this particular section is a straight drop straight down. And the Danube is not a still river. It's a very strong, fast-flowing river. And so it cuts a channel wherever it goes and maintains that speed. Near the end of World War II, the Germans were running out of ammunition. They had to conserve on bullets. And so they would line people up along these walls. And I say people, I should tell you, they would line the Jews up along the wall because there were 60,000 Jews in Budapest at the time. And the goal, the population goal for the Third Reich was that there be 0 Jews in Budapest. And they would have them remove their shoes because shoes are an important commodity in World War II. They would have them remove their shoes. And they would tie all of these people together, legs, arms. They would, children, women, men, didn't matter, and they would line them up on the wall. And the soldier would be directed to shoot one person in the line, and they'd push him in the river. Again, and again, and again, and again, because these soldiers were taught to hate. And the one individual that was shot, of course, was shot in such a way to make sure that they died, pushing them in the river, turned them into an anchor, and they pulled everyone with them to the bottom of the Danube. You can't get there in your head or in your heart unless someone teaches you how to do that. Someone has to teach you to create a state of bitterness and enmity and hatred and anger. And then other people have to complacently say, that's okay. Or to ignore your comments, or to ignore your attitude, or to ignore your ideology, or to ignore your perspective. And here we are, 2024, some 75 years removed from those actions, and we have forgotten that we, the body of Christ, are called to be a people of love, not a people of hate. I was amazed at the roads and our travels because I was amazed at how kind people were who drove vehicles. And after 2 weeks of driving around all over the place and being on buses and smaller vehicles, and I came back here, And I forgot we don't drive that way. I had a young lady cut me off day before yesterday. She turned left. She was in the right lane beside me, and she turned left at the intersection. And in order to do that, she had to cut me off, and she looked straight ahead when I stopped to check and see if she's okay, because no person who is okay would do anything like that, and she just pretended I wasn't there. And then I realized that's how you do it. That's how you hate. What you need, what you want, what you feel, what you think, what you believe, these are the things that are most important. And it doesn't really matter what the book says. It doesn't really matter what the relationship with God commands. It doesn't really matter what thousands of years of history of our faith tradition, both Jewish and Christian, expect of us. The only thing that matters is me. What I think, what I feel, what I believe, what I own as my truth. And if I can figure out how to live that way, it makes it easy for me to hate. The Pharisees hated Jesus. Jesus and the disciples were hungry. And one of the expectations of people who owned crops was the gleaning. You intentionally would leave behind a portion of the food that you were growing. You would intentionally leave it on the tree, leave it on the stalk, leave it on the sheaf, so that the stranger, the widow, the sojourner could help themselves to it. You were supposed to do that. God's people are supposed to give stuff away, and it has been that way since the beginning of our time as a Judeo-Christian tradition. We're supposed to be prepared for the widow, the stranger, the sojourner, and make sure they have what they need. And the Pharisees are angry. The Pharisees are angry because it is the Shabbat. It is the Sabbath day, and on the Sabbath day, you're not supposed to do any work. And if you go out into the fields and you cut grain or pull corn or harvest fruit, it's physical labor, and you're not supposed to do that on the Sabbath day. And the Pharisees began to rail at Jesus over this. And Jesus says, very simply, the Sabbath was made for us. We were not made for the Sabbath. The purpose and intention of the holy day, of a day of coming apart, a day of separating yourself from your day-to-day obligations and responsibilities, is to recharge and renew your batteries, to reconnect with the divine, to reconnect with the people who love God, to reconnect with the people who love you. I'm picking on you today, Freddie, just because you're here and you're a good target. Freddie's had a rough week. He lost his father. And there's a lot of places you could be today, but you came here, Freddie. And I know why you came here, and you know why you came here, because you know there was God's people who loved and cared for you. I was just as excited as I could be to hug your neck this morning. And I'm so sorry about your loss, and I'm so excited about your dad's ultimate healing. But that's why we do church, right? That's why we come together. Because God calls us and invites us into these loving relationships that are relationships designed to strengthen our souls and spirits, and relationships that are designed for us to connect with the divine and with each other. But somebody taught us how to hate. My invitation to you, my question to you, my challenge to you is, who is teaching you? And who is teaching you how to hate? Because it's not me, it's not this pastor. I don't think that I've done anything other than to confess my frustration when I drive on the highway so that you know I'm a human being like the rest of you. I'm not teaching you how to hate, but somebody is. And it's not okay. You see, in Europe, they learned that lesson. They learned that lesson and they teach it all the time. There are acts of constant regret and challenge and, well, to understand that it's not okay to have a single human being or a group of human beings tell you how important it is to hate other people because they don't look like you and sound like you and talk like you and act like you and eat like you and speak like you. What will you do? What will you do the next time that you run into somebody who denies that the Holocaust occurred? The next time somebody tells you that we need to hate a group because of their language or because of their status, because of who they are, what will you do? Will you remain silent, or will you say, you know, it's not okay to hate? Have difference of opinion? Sure. Raise a question about things? Absolutely. That's part of why the men and women in our country gave themselves in service to this nation, so that you and I would have the right to disagree. We would have the right to have differences of opinion. We would have the right to think about things differently, and that we would have the right, all of us, all the time, to express it openly without fear of reprisal. It's why men and women have bled and died across this globe, and who are doing it even now in the country of Ukraine. Who taught you how to hate? And who will teach you how to love? In the name of God who was, and God who is, and God who is yet to be,